Please, don't send us home." The words were not shouted. They were whispered, trembling, desperate, and real. These women were prisoners of war. Yet America had become the only place they still felt human. That is their story. The announcement came on a clear April morning in 1946. Long after the guns had fallen silent, but while the war still lingered like smoke in the memory of every living soul, the women of Camp Birchwood, a prisoner of war camp tucked deep among the pine forests of Minnesota, stood in formation for roll call when the words that none of them were prepared for finally came. "Repatriation orders have begun." The officer said. The line of women did not react. Not visibly. Not yet. They had learned long ago not to show emotion in front of uniforms. But something rippled beneath the stillness. Something sharp and cold. Repatriation. For months years now it had been a distant rumor. A word passed in quiet voices at night. A question no one dared to ask directly. When will they send us home? Now they had their answer. Soon Lieutenant Harris, the American officer in charge, continued reading from a clipboard, his voice steady. "Transport lists will be posted today. All German personnel will be returned to their homeland in accordance with Allied policy. Further instructions will follow." Homeland. Germany. The women exchanged glances. And what moved across their faces was not relief, but fear, because home no longer existed. Not the home they had known. Not the streets where children played before the sirens. Not the marketplace with fresh bread and laughter. Not the quiet evenings with church bells and warm lights in every window. Those homes had been taken by fire and bombs and rubble. For many of them, the word home meant hunger. It meant ruins. It meant graves. It meant going back to nothing. After roll call, no one went straight to breakfast. Instead, they gathered in silence outside the notice board, where the first list was already posted, names, typed in black ink. Neat and official. Transport. A. May 3 Arditha. First transport would leave in 12 days. Anna Weber didn't move forward to read it. She stood in the second row of women, her hands clasped in front of her coat, eyes fixed, not on the paper, but on the faces of the women reading it. She saw the moment. Realization struck each one. The stiff posture, the shoulders that tensed, the eyes that searched then dropped. Some women looked stunned. Some looked terrified. A few turned away too quickly. Anna already knew what it would say without reading it herself. She had heard enough news from the Red Cross, seen enough photographs pass quietly from bunk to bunk. Germany was not a place anyone could return to and remain whole. Not anymore. Elsa Meyer, a former nurse from Hamburg, stepped back from the board. Her face was pale, her breath shaky. "My name is on it," Elsa whispered. Anna's chest tightened. "The first list." Elsa nodded. "May 3rd, that's less than 2 weeks. Yes." Elsa swallowed hard. "What am I supposed to go back to? There's nothing left." Anna didn't try to comfort her. There were no words for this kind of fear. Behind them stood Lena Hoffman, only 19, with a face too young for the war she had already survived. Her hands trembled as she stared at the list. "My name isn't there," she said. "Then you'll be on the next one," Elsa said quietly. "We all will." Thunder cracked in the distance, though the sky above them was still painfully clear. No one spoke after that. The crowd slowly broke apart. Some women walked to the mess hall, silent and slow. Others drifted toward the barracks. A few stayed behind and simply stared at the lists, at the paper that would decide their lives, as if staring long enough might cause it to change. Anna forced herself to walk inside. She joined the breakfast line, even though she wasn't hungry. She held her tray mechanically as a cook spooned scrambled eggs onto it. The smell of coffee drifted past her, but the warmth of the room didn't reach her. Neither did the food. Neither did the noise. Her mind felt very, very still. Elsa sat across from her, untouched tray in front of her. "They can't send us back," Elsa whispered. "Not yet. Not like this." Anna said nothing. Elsa leaned forward. Her voice was fierce now, alive again, not with hope, but with will. "There has to be a way," she said. "We survived the war. We survived this camp. We are still here. There has to be a way." Anna looked up and saw something in Elsa's eyes. Something dangerous. Something stronger than fear. A decision for the rest of the day. The camp felt like it was holding its breath. Work continued. Laundry was done. Potatoes were peeled. Uniforms were mended. But conversations were not the same. Every sentence trailed off. Every glance carried the same silent question. What will happen to us now? After the evening meal, Anna walked back to Barrack 7 with Elsa and Lena. The sun was setting behind the trees, and the sky had turned the faded violet of spring nights in Minnesota. A cold wind blew through the cracks in the wooden walls, and inside, the air smelled faintly of soap and pine smoke. No one prepared for sleep. They sat on their bunks, still in their coats, waiting. For what they didn't know, finally, Elsa spoke. "I won't go back." Her voice was steady, certain. It wasn't dramatic. It was simply a truth. Lena looked at her with wide eyes. "Elsa, we can't refuse. Repatriation is an order. It comes from Washington." "I don't care where it comes from," Elsa said. "I won't get on that train." Anna didn't answer. She was sitting with her hands clasped, staring at the floor. She had been thinking the same thing, but she hadn't dared to say it. Saying it made it real. Elsa leaned forward, eyes burning. "Listen to me. We survived bombing raids, hunger, crossing oceans and troop ships. We survived this war. Do you really think I'm going to let them send me back to a graveyard and call it home?" Lena's voice trembled. "But what choice is there?" Elsa looked between them, then said quietly, "We asked to stay." Anna slowly lifted her head. "Ask who?" Elsa didn't hesitate. "The Americans?" Lena stared at her like she'd gone mad. "Ask the Americans to let German prisoners stay in America." "Elsa, they would never agree to that." Elsa looked at her and said, "Haven't you noticed? They listen." Anna felt something shift inside her. She had been trying to bury it, this impossible thought, but now she let it surface. What if this didn't have to be the end? What would we even say? Anna asked. Elsa answered without pausing. She had already been thinking about it, planning it. "We tell them the truth," she said. "We tell them we have nothing left to return to, that we are willing to work, that we are not a threat, that we're asking not as soldiers, but as women who simply want a chance to live." Lena shook her head. "They won't listen." Anna turned to her. "Then we make them listen." The words came out before she even realized she had spoken them. But once spoken, they anchored. Elsa nodded. "We write letters. Every one of us." "To who?" Lena asked again. "To anyone who will listen," Elsa replied. "The camp commander, the state governor, Red Cross, churches, newspapers. America believes in letters. They believe in words." Anna thought about that. Letters. Maybe it wasn't impossible after all. Maybe, just maybe, someone in America would read them. "Some of the women won't do it," Lena warned. "Then they won't," Elsa said. "But those of us who want to stay, those of us who want a future, we fight for it, not with weapons. With words." A long silence followed. Then Anna said quietly, "All right." Lena hesitated, then nodded. "Me too." Elsa's eyes softened. "Then we begin tomorrow." Rain tapped softly against the barracks roof as the camp slept, but Anna stayed awake long after light, staring up at the dark ceiling. For the first time since hearing the word repatriation, she didn't feel fear. She felt something else, something she hadn't felt in a very, very long time. Purpose. The next morning, a quiet determination moved through Camp Birchwood. It didn't come from speeches or orders. It moved silently from bunk to bunk, from table to table, carried not by voices, but by eyes, by resolve. Anna, Elsa, and Lena didn't need to explain. They didn't stand on a box and announce a plan. They didn't argue or beg. They simply walked to the recreation room when work assignments began, sat at a long wooden tableland, began to write. They didn't look around to see who would follow. They didn't ask permission. They just began. The recreation room was warmed by a black iron stove, and weak spring sunlight spilled through the tall windows. There were pencils, ink, envelopes. The Americans had always provided writing supplies. Free letters were considered a right under international law. But today, the room felt different. It felt like more than a place to write. It felt like a place to fight back. Quietly, Anna dipped her pen into the small bottle of black ink and stared at her blank page. Her hand hovered there for several long seconds. What could she possibly write that would matter? What words could carry the weight of everything she could not return to? She let the pen touch the page. To whom it may concern, my name is Anna Weber. I am 26 years old. I have been a prisoner of war at Camp Birchwood since August 1944. I write this letter not to complain or protest, but to ask for only one thing: the right to work and remain in America rather than be repatriated to Germany. She paused, her heart pounding as she continued. My home was destroyed during an air raid. My family is gone. I have nothing to return to but ruins. I do not ask for comfort. I ask only for the chance to rebuild my life through honest labor. If allowed, I am willing to work wherever I am needed, on farms, in offices, schools, or hospitals. I have experience as a typist and clerk and can be useful in civilian duties. She continued until the page felt complete. Not dramatic, not poetic, true. Beside her, Elsa was writing to her script. Neat and careful. I write not as a soldier, but as a woman who wants to live. Across from them, Lena bit her lip as she wrote slowly, thoughtfully. Germany has nothing left for us. But here there is order, purpose, dignity. If life can begin again, it must begin in a place where those things still exist. As they wrote in silence, something extraordinary began to happen. Women started to enter the recreation hall one by one. Some stopped at the doorway, watching without speaking. Others walked in, sat down, picked up paper. Then another row of women came in, then another dot, until all 14 tables in the hall were full. 300 women. 300 letters. 300 pleas. Not for freedom, not for favors, for the right to live. By the second hour, stacks of letters covered the table. The sound of pens scratching paper filled the room like a steady rain. Anna looked up once and saw a dozen women crying as they wrote. Not loud tears, quiet ones. Tears of someone who has carried too much for too long. An American sergeant entered the room halfway through the day to check on supplies, but when he saw the silence, the writing, the rows of women with letters, he froze in the doorway. He didn't speak. He didn't ask what they were writing. He simply stayed there for a long moment, watching history move on paper. Then he turned and left. By late afternoon, the first wave of letters was complete, over 140 written in one day. The women sealed them and stacked them neatly, forming a tower in the center of the table. Elsa stared at the mountain of envelopes. It's not enough, she said. Donna nodded slowly. No, it isn't. We need more than letters, Elsa said. Words are easy to ignore. Lena looked at her. Then what do we do? Elsa didn't blink. We send them to someone who can't ignore us. Anna stared at her. Who? Elsa answered. America. The next morning, the camp woke to a quiet wind and a sky the color of steel. Frost still clung to the grass, though spring had technically begun. But there was something different in the purpose. No one waited for instructions. No one gathered for breakfast first. They went straight to the recreation hall. By noon, more than 300 letters had been written. They were addressed to the United States War Department, the governor of Minnesota, American Red Cross church councils, civilian work boards, newspapers, families who had written to them, and even to President Harry S. Truman. But then came the question no one had yet asked: how will we send them? Mail was controlled. Mail was censored. Mail was slow. If the letters went through the normal system, they would arrive to Lator, not arrive at all. The women stood around the growing pile of envelopes, the weight of reality pressing in. Letters were not enough. They needed something more, something louder, something undeniable. We need witnesses, Anna said. Elsa looked at her. Witnesses. Anna nodded. In Germany, truth died in silence. Here truth lives when it is seen. If we want these letters to be read, we need someone to see us send them. Someone who cannot pretend we never asked, but who. Lena asked. Anna picked up a newspaper from the supply table, the Minneapolis Morning Tribune. The press, she said. For the first time in weeks, a spark of real hope entered the room. Dangerous hope. Necessary hope. They acted immediately, using the little English they knew. They crafted a new letter this time, only 1 page long. Elsa translated word by word with help from Lena, who had studied a little English before the war. Anna rewrote it until the message was clear, precise, and respectful. When it was done, she read it aloud. To the people of America, we were told America was our enemy. But in captivity, we found something we did not expect: decency. Now we are being sent back to a homeland that no longer exists. Our cities are in ruins, our families scattered, our futures destroyed. We ask not for mercy, but for a chance to stay and work in America. We are trained workers, nurses, clerks, teachers, radio operators, and farm laborers. We ask to serve not as prisoners, but as people. We ask only this: do not send us back to hunger and ashes. Respectfully, the women of Camp Birchwood. The room was silent when she finished, not because the letter was dramatic, but because it was true. Now, Elsa said, we deliver it. How? Lena asked. No one will carry it for us. We won't ask anyone to carry it, Anna said. She looked at them, at all 300 women standing in that room, and said, we will deliver it ourselves. The plan formed quickly. At noon the next day, the women walked and marched to the camp gates holding the single-page appeal, signed by all of them. They asked, not demanded, that a local reporter be allowed to witness them sending the letters. No violence, no escape attempt, no protest, just a request to be heard. The guards at the gate were stunned. No one moved for a long, silent minute. Then the gatehouse phone rang. Orders were given. 20 minutes later, a black Ford sedan pulled up outside the gate. A man stepped out carrying a leather notepad and a press badge. He approached the gate slowly, looking at the crowd of German women standing in coats and scarves, holding envelopes with shaking but determined hands. My name is Howard Blake, he said. Minneapolis Tribune. I was told you had something to say. Anna stepped forward. She didn't know how this story would end. She didn't know if America would listen, but she knew what had to be done. She held out the letter. We are asking, she said, to stay. They had expected him to laugh, or to shake his head politely and walk away, or perhaps to tell them he could not get involved in military matters. But Howard Blake did none of those things. He read the letter slowly, carefully, twice. Then he looked up, not with pity, not with mockery, but with something they had not expected from an American stranger. Respect. How many of you signed this? He asked. Anna swallowed. All of us. Howard looked at the line of women, hundreds, standing shoulder to shoulder behind the camp fence. He saw threadbare coats, hands worn from labor, faces carved by war and waiting. He saw women who had been marched across continents, who had lost homes, loved ones, everything, and yet were still standing. Are you asking for release? He asked. No, Anna said firmly. We asked to work. We asked not to be sent back to destruction. Howard nodded once. And why America? Elsa stepped forward. Because here, even prisoners are treated as human beings. Howard didn't speak right away. He scribbled something in his notepad, a reporter's habit. Then he closed it. I'll send this story out, he said, not just to Minneapolis, Milwaukee, Chicago, St. Louis, maybe even New York, if an editor has a soul. He reached out and took the letter from Anna. History won't remember my opinion, he said, but it might remember yours. The story appeared in print 3 days later, on the front page of the Minneapolis Tribune. Then the Chicago Daily News, then the St. Paul Dispatch, the Milwaukee Journal, and the Detroit Free Press. Headline after headline began to appear. German women pose asked to stay in America. Do not send us back to ruins. Say prisoners pose offer work in exchange for HOPITA. Response from the public came even faster than anyone expected. Within 48 hours, the camp mailroom received over 300 letters from Americans. They came from farmers, school teachers, doctors, factory workers, church pastors, widows, soldiers' mothers, even a group of war veterans from Iowa. Most began the same way. We never knew prisoners could feel this way. Your letter moved us. If they want to work, let them stay. Anna read one aloud in the barracks that night, her voice trembling. Dear ladies of Camp Birchwood, my son fought in France and was wounded. I lost my brother at sea. I have every reason to hate Germans, but I do not hate you. If a person wants to work and live in peace, they deserve the chance. I will be writing to Washington on your behalf. Do not lose hope. Margaret Holden, Ohio tears, slipped down Lena's face. Elsa pressed a hand over her mouth for the first time. They did not feel like prisoners of war. They felt like people with voices, but not everyone supported them. The backlash came next cold and sharp. Newspapers in New York and Boston called them the enemy and dresses. War widows from Philadelphia wrote that sending food to German prisoners while American families struggle is a disgrace. A senator from Illinois accused them of being Nazi spies hiding behind sympathy. Then came the worst of it. Someone mailed a newspaper clipping to the camp with 3 words scrawled across it in red ink: "Send them back." The letter was passed silently from hand to hand. Lena stared at it. "They hate us," she whispered. "No," Anna said firmly. "Not all of them. Some do. But some don't. And that means we must keep going." Elsa nodded. If even one person listens, one judge, one commander, one lawmaker, our letters will matter. But the opposition was growing, especially from inside the camp. Die true and the faithful were watching. These were the women who still believed in the Reich, who still believed surrender was betrayal, who despised America, who believed the letters were a shameful act. They began whispering through the barracks. Traitors, begging for mercy from the enemy, cowards afraid to return home. Some of them tore up their letters. Some spat when Anna walked by. Some threatened to report names to occupation authorities in Germany. After the war, tension split the camp like an invisible wire. And then, things escalated. Late one night, as Anna returned to Barrack 7, she found her bunk ransacked, her blanket tossed to the floor, her drawer overturned, and on her pillow a scrap of paper. "Shame on you." Elsa crumpled it in her fist. "They're trying to scare us." Anna looked at the torn letters on the floor. Her hands trembled, but not from fear, from resolve. "They think we're afraid," she said quietly. She looked up. "We're not done." They called it a hearing, not a trial, not a court, just a hearing, a chance for the women to be questioned by a delegation sent from Washington to review their request for humanitarian consideration. But everyone in Camp Birchwood knew the truth. This was their only chance. Once the hearings were over, final repatriation orders would be signed. If they failed here, if they did not convince the delegation, they would be sent back. The hearing was held in the recreation hall. They cleared away the writing tables and stacked them along the walls. A long row of folding chairs formed a panel at the front beneath the American flag. On the table in front of them were thick folders, dossiers, files about them. Anna, Elsa, Lena, and every other woman who had written a letter asking to stay. Lieutenant Harris sat on one side, his face unreadable. On the other sat 2 military officers Anna had never seen before. But at the center of the table was a familiar face, Daniel Reeves, the civilian liaison who had come from Washington. He didn't smile. He didn't greet them, but he nodded once, almost respectfully. Before beginning, they called the women in one by one. Some interviews lasted only a few minutes. Others went on longer, especially when the women struggled with English or emotion. "Why do you want to stay? Do you have family left in Germany? What work are you willing to do? Do you understand staying means you will never return home? Are you prepared to live without citizenship?" The questions were blunt but not cruel. The Americans listened. They took notes. They allowed the women to speak without interruption. When Lena came out, her hand shook. "How was it?" Anna asked. "They asked me if I hated America," Lena whispered. "What did you say?" She took a breath and answered. "I said I don't hate any country that feeds its prisoners." She sat down, silent, crying but not weak. Anna was called next. She stepped inside and stood before the panel. The room had grown too quiet. She could feel her heartbeat in her throat. Her palms were damp, but she met their eyes. Daniel Reeves adjusted his glasses and opened her file. Name, Anna Weber. Age, 26. Civilian typist. Captured in France, 1944. No living family confirmed. No political affiliations. No disciplinary violations in camp. He closed the file. Miss Weber, he said calmly, you wrote in your letter that you do not ask for mercy, only the chance to work. Why? Most prisoners plead for freedom, not work. Why did you choose those words? Anna didn't answer right away. She knew the wrong sentence could end everything. But she also knew something else. Truth had brought them this far. Only truth could take them further, so she told it. Because mercy is a gift, she said. Work is a promise. Reeves studied her. And what do you promise? That if you let me stay, Anna said softly, I will never ask for anything again. Just a chance to build a life with my own hands. One of the officers leaned forward. You do understand what you are asking. This country owes you nothing. Anna nodded. Then I will earn it. Why America? He pressed. Why not rebuild Germany? Anna swallowed. Because Germany is a graveyard, she said, and I am tired of living with ghosts. No one spoke for a long time. Finally, Reeves closed her file. Thank you, Miss Weber, he said. You may go. The hearings lasted 3 days. No one slept. No one laughed. Even Di. Trewin stopped whispering. The future of every woman in Camp Birchwood now rested in a single decision. On the morning of the 4th day, the entire camp was called back to the recreation hall. The women stood packed together under the wooden rafters, hands clenched in front of them. Reeves stepped forward, holding a list. His eyes scanned the room when this began. He said, we did not know what to expect. You did not rebel. You did not threaten. You did not ask for comfort. You asked simply to be heard. He looked down at the paper in his hands. A decision has been made. No one moved. No one will be. Forced onto a transport against their will. A wave of gasps swept the room. But only 80 applications have been approved to remain in America provisionally as civilian workers. 80. Out of more than 300, he continued. Those approved will be assigned sponsors and work placements. They will remain under supervision, but will not be repatriated. Anna's breath caught. This was it. He began to read the names. They echoed like bells. Elsa Meyer, Lena, Hoffman. Silence. Then Anna Weber. Her knees almost gave way. Not everyone cried, but many did. Some wept with joy. Some wept with heartbreak. Some wept simply because the waiting was finally over. Many had not been chosen. Many would still be sent back. But something had changed for the rest of their lives. These women would never again be voiceless. As Anna stepped outside into the cold spring air, she found Lena waiting for her. Elsa was beside her. They didn't hug. They didn't cheer. They only held each other's hands. None of them spoke. They didn't need to. From behind them came a voice, one they all remembered. Howard Blake, the reporter, lowered his notebook and said quietly, you know, they're going to write about you. Anna looked at him slowly. What will they say? He gave a small smile. That once, prisoners of war begged not for freedom, but for the right to stay. Thank you for watching this story. If you would like more powerful true stories from history, subscribe now and tell us what part of this story moved you most.